हरि ओम। ओम सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयम् नमामि चिन्मयं देवम् सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः। योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पातञ्जलि प्राञ्जलिना नतोऽस्मि। हरि ओम। We are trying to study the third or the Vibhuti Pada of Patanjali Yoga Sutra, which mainly focuses on the extraordinary dimensions of Chitta when it attempts to do Sanyama. We visualize the world, we interact in this world, we interact with each other, but we do that with a fraction of Chitta attempting to concentrate. Our interaction is a classical example of how a very strong ray of light is diffracted in different directions. Our interactions in this universe are full of vikshepa. They're never steady. They do not stay at a point of interaction for a sufficiently long time. We eat, we drink, we sleep, we talk, but every time our mind is flitting. The chitta, when it has tons of vrittis coming out of it, a multitude of thoughts shifting and vacillating between one or two or three or different 100 points, the chitta loses what is called concentration. And the only way to know the exact content of anything that you interact with is to concentrate. Perhaps on few occasions, such as study in the examination, or perhaps the project or the work that is kind of compulsory to us, we try to focus our mind and mind well. So far, the science proves that not more than 6 to 8% of the brain, the capacity of the brain is utilized in highest possible functioning. What it means is, if the chitta, the antakarana, or the mind in common man's language, if it is focused on one thing at one point of time for a sufficiently long time, then new vistas of that particular interaction will come to the experience of the experiencer. We look at the tree, but we do not look at the tree with the concentration that is required to observe a tree. So all that we know when we interact with any object such as tree is only the external manifested qualitative characteristics of that particular object. Perhaps we may then name it. We call it a mango tree having green leaves and yet to bear the fruit. Or it has borne the fruit and there is a nice mango dangling there up in the air. But is that the real nature of the mango tree? The science tells us that it is made up of xylem, phloem, cambium. There are different tissues that the tree has. Do we see them? No, we see them under the microscope. And there is also a movement that is happening of water molecules and nutritious products within the venules of the tree, which we don't see. That means the multitude of cells working together in a humongous way is something which is completely oblivious to our sight. Today, if the microscope helps me to penetrate into the aspects of certain trees and perhaps able to see phloem and xylem under the microscope as cells of the tree, I'm not able to visualize them in a normal set of condition when I'm looking and focusing on the tree. However, if one develops the ability to observe an object with the kind of intensity that is required in concentration, it is possible to see precisely what is happening inside the tree, inside the object. And as one develops this faculty of concentration, which is called as Sanyama in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, which comprises of Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi, then not only the object is laid bare open in front of us, but a new truth reveals in the mind that all the objects are essentially arising from the same source. The tree is a modification of Panchamahabhuta, while a stone is a modification of Panchamahabhuta. So all modified Nama and Roop of objects now gets translated into their basic constituent, the Panchamahabhutas, and that is how a concentration done through Sanyama on any object lays bare open all the objects, need not necessarily the same object. A heap of rice is cooked for us. We take a morsel of a rice and we come to know how it tastes. Each and every morsel will taste in the same manner. Similarly, any object that we undertake as an object of Sanyama will bear open all the objects in this world and their constituent items. Layer by layer, we dissect the object of concentration till a point when we reach to the ultimate source of all the objects, which is Purusha. The process of moving from the outer manifested Nama Rupa, the name and the form, and then going deep into the penetrating into the object, discovering layer by layer the inner content of the object, moving forward with each step, which is further and further difficult, it automatically pushes us closer to the kernel or the core of any object, which is consciousness. And when the observer tries to reach the consciousness, he merges with the consciousness. That is the point where the consciousness is cognized. It's a very funny statement. Consciousness itself leads to cognition. However, consciousness gets cognized, meaning thereby Brahmavit Brahmeva Bhavati. When the consciousness of an observer becomes one with the consciousness of an object, that is the point of time he gets transformed into Chaitanya or the consciousness. And that is the point when he realizes that rest, everything which was the outer covering called Prakriti, is a separate dead thing, Jada, while the consciousness is the only ultimate source of everything and the ultimate thing, that where this particular investigation of different layers stops. It is the causeless cause of all the creation. The stages through which we go in this particular aspect of concentration are called different levels of samadhi. Till we reach the kernel of consciousness, when we go through different layers, we take each layer as the point of concentration. Each layer is called alambana. When we take a murti of Narayana in front of us, the outer aspect of the murti of Narayana or Krishna with the flute in his hand and with his beautiful countenance becomes the initial point of concentration. As we move forward, this Namarupa is dropped off and inner coverings are unearthed for us. That is how we go through the stages of Savitarka Nirvitarka, Savichara Nirvichara, Sa Asmita Sananda. Up to this point, everyone takes some alambana, and whatever is the object of alambana, that becomes bare open for us. When the Buddhi Tattva is taken as an object, which is the closest to the Purusha, that is the time, the Sananda. And then we go beyond that to the Ahankara or Asmita. We get Asmita Sampradnyat Samadhi. All Sampradnyat Samadhis are nothing else but focusing on different layers, taking each layer as an alambana or a dependent variable for the sake of concentration. A point comes when there are no more coverings left. The only covering that is left is the fact that I am meditating is itself the last obstacle. When I come to a point where I don't have anything else to meditate, but only to meditate upon the fact that I am meditating, the same process leads to dropping off meditator's observer state. The meditator no more remains the meditator, and when the meditator is no more as meditator, he becomes one with the object of meditation. When the meditator becomes the object of meditation, the meditation ends because there is no meditator, and the object and the subject become one. That is the point where the alambana is no more required, and then it becomes a sampradnyat samadhi, nirbija samadhi, because there is no seed required as a rallying point for the sanyama or the concentration. This process is possible only when the intellect or the antakarana has enough potency and penetrating power. The Kathopanishad is replete with the shlokas which talks about the power of buddhi, the intellect, the finest aspect of antakarana. Antakarana is a multifold thing. We have mana buddhi chitta ahankar, we all know that, of which the buddhi, the most taral or the subtle of subtlest, the one which is made up of sattva guna, shuddha sattva guna, and the one which is closest to the Chaitanya is the instrument that is to be used. In order to catch the light of the sun, it is the mirror that can be used, not the wall and not the stones. So the jada, the indriyas are of no use. The mind alone is of no use. What is of use is buddhi. And that is why if this reflecting surface, if this shining, reflecting surface is not clean enough, the power of reflection becomes dull. A dull power of reflection cannot help us in meditation. So the chitta shuddhi, which comes only through para vairagya. In simpler words, chitta shuddhi is nothing but snapping away the involvement of chitta into everything that is assessed through indriyas. The day we are able to completely shut off our indriyas to the external world, that means when everything in the external world ceases to be of any significance to us, which is called para vairagya, that is the time when buddhi gets its complete potency. It becomes a real, true, pluripotent apparatus, sharp, pure, and crystal clear. Only when such a buddhi one has, the journey of meditation starts, not before that. No dull intellect will be in a position to focus and concentrate. We are all privy to that in our daily life. We are not able to concentrate on anything. That is simply because the antakarana is not pure the way it is expected to be. And the ways of polishing this mirror, the ways of polishing this diamond called buddhi, is to deviate from all that would dull the buddhi. And that is the reason the Ashtanga Yoga comes into the picture. Those who follow Yama Niyama, Asana, Pratyahara, they become eligible for the next course of action, which is called Kriya Yoga, the Dhyana, Dharana, and Samadhi aspect of the Ashtanga Yoga. The qualifying aspect is purity of chitta. Such a yogi who has purified his chitta and then goes on the marching of meditation, at each level of meditation, he transcends the boundaries of limited intellect into unlimited intellect. With the help of unlimited intellect, those aspects of the universe which are otherwise completely prohibited from us to know because of our dull intellect starts opening up. A blind person, when he gets his vision, all of a sudden he is able to see so many things which he has never seen. On the similar lines, a yogi, when he starts meditating, on the way of his concentration, he realizes that there are so many aspects in the universe which we are not aware of. Our buddhi is extremely limited. And this is not said only by the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. The modern science also emphasizes on the same thing. None of us have ever thought of any dimensions beyond 3 dimensions. The length, the breadth, and the depth are the only 3 dimensions with which our mind can work. Can you ever even imagine 4th dimension? It goes beyond the capacity of the brain. Even if we strenuously try very hard to imagine 4th dimension, we cannot. But at the same time, it is the modern science which tells us about the string theory. String theory is nothing else but an offshoot of a quantum theory, which talks about 14 dimensions. Not only that science has progressed in saying that there are 14 dimensions, even the length of the dimension from 3rd to 14 has been measured to be not more than 16 nanometers. What it means is there are so many things in this universe which we are not aware of, which we cannot be aware of with the kind of intellect that we have. Mathematically, and through astrophysics and other quantum theories, the same thing is being established through calculations, not through experience. A yogi actually experiences that. His experience comes simply because of the sharpened intellect, which is now on march in the act of meditation. Higher and higher realms of consciousness throws light larger and broader enough to illuminate those aspects of universe which are normally not accessible to us. We all are convinced about the fact that this earth is inundated with people like you and me. We see animals, we see ourselves, we don't see anything else here. But our inability to see doesn't mean that the world is only restricted to human beings. There are beings here in the universe at different levels, which we are not able to access. They are there. They are having their regular affairs there. And that is why what we see with the help of indriyas is a limited aspect of universe. It has been now found out that when two protons collide with each other, there is a creation of a micro vacuum, which for a split nanosecond creates fourth and fifth and sixth and other dimensions, which is called as mid-vacuum death, which has a power of even completely destroying the universe, although it is of a subatomic particle like proton. But these are aspects which are not known to us. If this is the case, then yogi, when he tries to do sanyama on those astral aspects, on those stars which are there in this universe, he comes to know by focusing on one star, everything that is there in this starry world. We see the sun, we see the moon, we see some stars every day with a greater improvement in the telescopes. Larger and larger galaxies are being seen, huge, humongous stars are being seen. They are still in the process of assessing new stars. There are discoveries happening every day. However, a yogi, again, because of the underlying principle for the manifestation of all stars being same, by focusing on one of the star, they come to know about the entire arrangement of the planets and the stars and the galaxies and the entire interrelationship of that. So the first thing that yogi comes to know is by focusing on the center of our own system called solar system, the sun. If you look at the basic aspects of astronomy, we realize that most of the stars or the planets or everything is in a motion. They are either in the elliptical motions or they are in the circular motions. Each thing is circulating around the other, and then the whole thing is circulating around somebody else, and then there are whole galaxies circulating at a phenomenal speed against something. So the sum total of all the universe is nothing else but velocity, the movement. And in order to know why A star is moving in relation to B star, and how they are placed with each other, how dimensionally they are differing at a different levels. In the depths of universe, in the silent dark areas of the universe, in the black holes that are surrounding the universes, there lies enormous amount of activity. The focus of yogi then moves from each place to know more about this world as such. Not the world that we know of, which is nothing else but a very minuscule aspect of the manifested universe, but the universe in itself. So the yogi first focuses on the central star of our planetary system called sun. And that is when the siddhi called bhuvana jnanam surya sayamat, By focusing the attention, the Sanyama, on the Surya, the yogi comes to know the knowledge of Bhuvana. What is Bhuvana? So far, we have been considering all the Bhuvanas, all the Patalas, all the Swargas as fictionary things. Mind well, they are not fictionary, because if fiction is to be produced, then why restrict it to certain numbers? Why every yogi experiences the same number of these worlds? Why the worlds are not 100, 200, 300, 400? Because fiction means imagination. Imaginations mean there is no limit. Everyone can come and create different types of bhuvanas. But the fact is that the complete locatory apparatus in the universe is experienced factually by the yogi, and that is how Chaturdasha Bhavanam, 14 different levels of lokas have been experienced by the yogis. And this knowledge of all the 14 lokas, starting from the lowest patala to the highest swarga, is experienced or seen by the yogi. And to do this, he doesn't have to go and scramble where these bhuvanas are, because the sanyama done on the sun, in the Surya, explodes into the knowledge of all the bhuvanas. Because all the bhuvanas are sustained by the presence of Surya. And that is why, instead of knowing each bhuvana, each swarga, bhuloka, patala, piece by piece, instead, yogi does sanyama on the sun itself and comes to know about all the bhuvanas. So, bhuvana jnanam surye sanyama. There comes a confusion, or there comes a kind of different school of thinking when the word Surya Sanyama. What is this Sanyama on the Surya? In the mind, you take the sun as the object of meditation and do the Sanyama on the sun. So does the sun means the sun which is there in the sky, or does the sun mean something else? And that is where the commentators or the Bhashyakaras are differing with each other. Vachaspati Mishra Maharaj says the Surya is nothing else but the Sushumna Nadi. Incidentally, the Sushumna Nadi and the Surya, Dahine Sur Chandrama Bae, इनके बीच छिपाना है, गगन की ओर निशाना है, Kabir Maharaj says. Gorakshanath Maharaj talks many a times about Sushumna and sun. So sun means Sushumna Nadi, or the Sanyam, or the focus of the meditation or the Dhyanam on Sushumna Nadi is what Vachaspati Mishra says, while Bhojaraja in Martanda Vritti says it is nothing else but the Prakashman Surya that you see in the sun, in the sky. So that is how there are different schools of opinion, but the commonly accepted is not the Sushumna Nadi, but the sun itself in the sky. Samartha Ramadasa Maharaj, a yogi of a very high order, in his younger years, when he was doing sadhana at the Panchavati near Nasik, in the Godavari river, early in the morning before Brahma Muhurta, he used to dip himself up to the waist deep water, and then he used to do this Sanyama on the sun till the mid-sun, till the midday, till the blazing sun is there in the sky. And that is called Surya Sanyama. That is why he is called Bhedile Surya Mandala. He is the one who has cracked the Surya Mandala, meaning thereby the Sanyama on the Surya is done. What is that the yogi sees when the Surya Sanyama is done? He comes to know that there are Trailokya, three lokas, Bhu, Bhuvaha, and Swaha. What is Bhuloka? Bhuloka is an area which starts from a lower Naraka called Avichi, and it extends up to the end of Sumeru Parvata. Sumeru Parvata, by its physical presence, is not seen by anyone, but the yogi sees that as the central mountain arising from the Bhuloka and going up towards the sky, right at the center of the habited Bhuloka, where the Manushya Ganas are there. So Sumeru Parvat end is the top limit of the Bhuloka, and the lowest is the Naraka called Avichi. So area between Avichi, Naraka, and the end of the Sumeru Parvata is called Bhuloka. From the end of the Meru Parvata or Sumeru Parvata up to the Dhruvatara is called Antariksha or Bhuvarloka. Om Bhur Bhuva. That Bhuvarloka is the upper one. It comprises of all the stars and the planets and the nakshatras. Surya, the Graha, Ashwini, Bharani, Nakshatra, etc. All the nakshatras, stars, planets which are there in Antariksha, they form the Bhuloka. Beyond that starts the Swargaloka. This Swargaloka is of 5 types. The Swargaloka is of 5 types. Together they are called Suvaha. So Om, Bhur, Bhuvaha, Suvaha, Swarga. The whole 5 are together called Swarga. Then Bhuloka, Bhuloka, Suhaloka becomes Trailokya. However, Swargaloka is of 5 types. The lowest of the Swarga is called Indraloka. And mind well, I am mentioning this not because it is a Puranic tradition to explore that. We are going to see who stays in these different lokas, what are their qualifications, and what do they do. So Indraloka is the lowest of the 5 Swargas. Then comes Maharloka, the second of the Swarga. Then comes Janaloka. Then comes Tapoloka. And then comes Satyaloka. So there are 5 types of Swargas, out of which Janaha, Tapaha, and Satyaha, these upper 3 Swargas are also called Brahmaloka. Brahmaloka or Brahmaloka. In Kathopanishad, the mention is made by Dharmaraj, Yamaraj to Nachiketa that, or Nachiket tells it to Dharmaraj that even if you give me Brahmapada meaning the highest of the Swarga, which is Satyaloka. In these, each of these lokas, there are different types of deities that are residing. We will see them. But it is important to note that the life of inhabitants of each this place is different. Higher you go, the inhabitants live for the longer period of life. And mind well, this longer period, we are talking about only kalpas, not few 100 years or something of that kind. Now, these Pancha Swargaloka, which is there at the higher realms, of which the top 3, the Janaloka, Tapoloka, and Satyaloka, is called Brahmaloka because here the Rishis are residing without doing any activity but only Dhyanam, because they are called Dhyana Trupta Loka. They do not have Kshat Pipasa. There is no hunger. There is no aging. There is no water required. There is no thirst. They are constantly and completely absorbed in Dhyanam. We are going to come later on to see a very important incident in the life of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, where he mentioned he came from where and Swami Vivekananda came from where. We shall see that when we see the inhabitants of each of these Swargas. So we have Bhuloka, we have Antariksha Loka, We have 5 Swarga Lokas. So all these together form 7 Urdhva Lokas. Now, between the Avichi Naraka and the Prithvi, which is our inhabited land, there lies different types of Narakas. Just below the Prithvi is Mahakal. The Mahakal is an area which is made up of stone and gravel, is Mahakal. If you're a student of geography, you can take this slice of earth that we studied right up to the magma that is there at the center. There is a stony part, then we come down, then we have water, then we have a boiling magma or boiling lava, then we go inside and there is darkness there. So these layers that we see in geography, we see something similar here, where between Bhulok and the lowest Naraka called Avichi, there are different levels of Narakas. The first being Mahakal, which is made up of stone and gravel, and the Jivas exist in this Naraka also. Then comes Ambarisha Naraka. The Mahakal is made up of earthen matter, earth, Prithvi Tattva. The next one is Salila Patishtha, Jala Tattva, that is called Ambarish Naraka, based on water. As we all know, we dig down to get the water. The water is below the stone level. That is, and there are organisms staying there. They are jivas who are suffering in that Naraka. As we go down, then we get what is called as fire, the Anala Pratishtha. It is called Raurava. So we have Mahakal, then we have the next Naraka, which is called Ambarisha. Then we have Raurava, which is made up of Anala, that is fire. Then below that, there is a gas. We all know that the gas, natural gas, is found when we drill down into the depths. That is called Maharaurava. And now it has been discovered that there are bacteria staying there also. So Maharaurava is Vayu Pratishtha. Below that lies Kala Sutra Naraka, which is Akasha Sthit. Only space is there. There are jivas there. And the last is called Mahanaraka Bhumi, which is Andhata Mistra. Andhata Mistra or Andhata Mishra is completely pervaded by darkness. So that is how between Bhuloka and Avichi, there are different levels of Naraka. The literal meaning of Naraka is Naraha Kayanti iti Narakaha. The place where jivas cry is called Naraka. Because they are all destined to very adverse situation where they stay, they suffer throughout their existence as a part of their karma phala. And that is how they are destined for the Naraka. Once this Naraka, which is between the Avichi and the Bhuloka, is seen, then below that are the Sapta Patalas. Mahatal, Rasatal, Atal, Sutal, Vital, Talatal, and Patal. These are the 7 different Patalas. So 7 Patalas, Adho, and 7 Urdhva, these are called Chaturdasha Bhuvana. 14 abodes of people, abodes of jivas. A yogi, when he does Sanyama on the sun, he not only sees this arrangement, he is able to actually know who is where, what is happening where in this Chaturdasha Bhuvanam. This Prithvi is Saptadvipa. It is called Saptadvipa Vasumati. The 7 continents that the geography tells and teaches us was known to the yogis on those days when there was no communication possible by Yoga Jnana. This is called Siddhi or the Yoga Jnana. Jnana that gets, and the one gets enlightened by the yoga itself, the yogic power itself. The Saptadvipa Vasumati is seen by them. And of course, on the Bhuloka, they are aware of what are the different areas, what are the different continents, what are the different seas, which are the Sapta Dvipas, which are the Sapta Samudras, the oceans, the entire knowledge comes to them. At the north of the Sumeru Parvata, there are Nila, Shweta and Shrunga Parvata, which correspond to the current Andes and other mountain ranges. These countries that lie on the north of Sumeru Parvata, called Ramanaka, Hiranmaya, Uttarakuru, etc., are the current northern hemisphere. To the south of that is Hemakuta, Hemagiri, and Nisha. The three mountains are there. This Hemagiri is nothing else but our Himalaya. And between these three mountains, we get countries called Harivarsha, Kimpurusha, and Bharata, which lies in the southern atmosphere, southern hemisphere. To the east, that is the Southeast Asia, is called Bhadrashva Desha. To the west, where the America lies, is called Ketumala Desha, and there is a Gandhamadana mountain on that side. That is how the arrangement of bhuvanas and different oceans and seas becomes known to the yogi as a part of his siddhi by doing sanyama on the Surya. Not only that, he sees these 14 different Chaturdasha Sthanam, he is able to actually see jivas residing there, some with body, some without body. The human beings are seen with body, which anyway the yogi has seen when he was not even a yogi. But during the Sanyama of Surya, what does it see? He sees in the Patal, Samudra and Parvat. At all the three places, he sees Asuras and Vinayaka. That means Devagana and Asura. What are the Asuras he sees there? The Preta, the Yaksha, the Pishacha, Gandharva, Rakshasa, Brahma Rakshasa, Kinnara, Apasmaraka, Bhuta, Apsara, all these are inhabitants of these places, and also Vinayaka. Vinayaka is a type of Devagana. We call Ganapati Vinayaka, but Vinayaka is Ganapati. He is the Lord of such Vinayaka. So Vinayaka is a type of Deva Tattva, which is residing in these places. On the Sapta Dvipas, Vasumati, that means our land, both Manushya and Devata are residing. This is the description that has come from the yogi. Then the Sumeru Parvat, which otherwise inaccessible to us, is the Vihara Sthali of Devata Gana. There are Upavanas there, gardens there, by the name Mishravana, Nandana, Chaitra, Ratha, Sumanasa. These are different types of gardens. There is a huge Sabhagraha called Sudharma. This is also called as a city called Sudarshana Nagar. If we look at the description of Golokas in the Sampradayas like Gaudiya Sampradaya, there is a complete description of how Krishna's Nagari is existing at different Golokas. These descriptions more or less match with what we are describing as Chaturdasha Bhuvana Jnanam. In the Antariksha Loka, beyond Sumeru Parvata, we have the first level of Graha, the second level of Nakshatra, and beyond that are the stars. Who stays at these different places? Let us see who is there in this Swarga. At the Mahendra Loka, there are 6 types of Devaganas staying there. They are Siddha Sankalpa, that means whatever they say happens, whatever they think happens, they are called Siddha Sankalpa, and all these Devas are Ashtada Siddhi Yukta. The life of these Devas in Mahendra Loka is 1 Kalpa. 1 Kalpa is 1 day of Brahma, which is equivalent to 1000 Mahayugas, which is 4.32 billion years is the life of Deva in Mahendra Loka. They are Pujaniya, They are Divya Dehadhari because they don't have the body the way we have, but they have luminosity. Divya Dehadhari. After Mahendra Loka comes the Mahat Loka. In Mahat Loka, there are again different types of Devaganas. They are Mahabhuta Vijayi. That means all Pancha Mahabhutas are at their disposal. And they are pushed dhyana matrena. They are only nourished through dhyana, meditation. Their life is 1000 kalpa. Beyond that is Janaloka. There are 4 types of gods residing here, which are called Brahma Purohita, Brahma Kaika, Brahma Mahakaika, and Amara. Brahma Purohit, they remain alive for 2000 kalpas, Brahma Kaik 4000 kalpas, Brahma Mahakaik 8000 kalpas, and Amara is 16,000 kalpas. This is about the Janaloka. Beyond that is Tapoloka. Now, these are the Devaganas who are of 3 types, but they are masters of Panchamahabhuta, Indriya, and Prakriti Vashinaha. The entire creation is at their mercy. So they are called Abhaswara, Mahabhaswara, and Satya Mahabhaswara. These Devaganas, they even live up to 128,000 kalpas, which is multi-billion years. Now let us come to the incidents of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. If we read carefully Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's biography, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa himself personally told the disciples that from where he has come. And the description goes like this. He says, there were some 7 rishis of luminous bodies doing meditation with a contentment on the face, deeply absorbed in meditation in the upper echelons of the universe. And at that point of time, one small bundle of luminosity in the form of a child came down and stroked one of the rishis and made a sign to go down. And then Ramakrishna Paramahamsa Thakurda says, then we came down. The rishi that I stroked is Swami Vivekananda, and the luminous child is nothing else but me. This narration by Thakur himself gives some correlation with the different abodes of devas that we are seeing. Then last is the Satyaloka. In Satyaloka, again, there are 4 types of Devaganas. Achyuta Devata, Shuddha Nivasa, Satyabhaha, and Saudhnya Sandhi. Now here comes our study of Patanjali Yoga Sutra handy for us. The highest of the loka is Satyaloka, and in that there are 4 types of Devaganas, Achyuta Devata, Shuddha Nivasa, Satyabhaha, and Saudhnya Sandhi. These 4 are nothing else but the Samadhi that we studied. So Savitarka Anugata Samadhi is Achyuta Devata, Savichara Anugata Samadhi is Shuddha Nivasa, Sananda Samadhi is Satyabhaha, and Asmita Anugata Samadhi is Saudhnya Sindhi Deva. The gist of the point that we want to make is the meditation is one of the highest dhyana vastit yad gatena manasa pashyanti yam yogino tasya anta na viduhu sura suragana. The sura and asura both cannot fathom at which level the yogi goes. That is because yogi is at the Satyaloka level. Why in most of the Puranas, devas are trembling when the Rishi is meditating is because of this reason. The devas have achieved a certain status. As Gurudeva calls it, they are officiating deities. When the officiating period is over, they are gone. Yogis are beyond that. Jnani is beyond that. Rishi, Muni is beyond that. So up to this point, those who are into Sampradnyat Samadhi, they reach Satyaloka during the act of meditation. Then comes the question, what happens to the asampradnyat samadhi yogi? Where does he stay? The asampradnyat samadhista yogi is either videha deva or prakriti laya deva, that we saw well before in the samadhi pada. Videha deva and prakriti laya deva both are beyond the Chaturdasha Vidyasthan. Of these two, Videha Deva stays within the Brahmanda, while the Prakruti Laya is even beyond the Tapoloka and Satyaloka. The last Loka, Satyaloka, is also transcended by them. But does that mean that Videha Deva and the Prakruti Laya Deva have liberated themselves? No. They are at the last stage of it. They don't have Purusha Khyati. At the same time, they have gone beyond the Prakriti. So between Prakriti and Purusha Khyati, somewhere between they are lying there. So at the end of dissolution of the entire universe, entire creation, they merge into the Purusha. That is why they are called Bhava Pratyayi. The one who has done the meditation of Sampratnyat and Asampratnyat Samadhi for a longer time, if he happens to be born again, right after birth, he goes into the stage of Samadhi. They are called Bhava Pratyaya, not Upaya Pratyaya. Upaya Pratyaya is stage-wise, Krama Mukti. First he will do Ashtanga Yoga, then he will reach Sampratnyat Samadhi, then he will reach Asampratnyat Samadhi, then he will reach Nirbija Samadhi. But Bhava Pratyaya, because in the yesteryears, births, they have completed their sadhana, they come and directly get absorbed into that. Like Jadhav, never bothered about what happened outside because he was constantly in communion with God. He was virtually useless for this world because he was completely absorbed into Bhava Pratyaya Samadhi. So Bhava Pratyaya is Kaivalya Sadrusham. It is not Kaivalya. Kaivalya Sadrusham. As if they have attained the Kaivalya, they lie. Merged into the entire creation beyond the 14 bhuvanas, waiting for the dissolution, after which they become one with Purusha. So the Purusha Khyati comes to them. That is why the Videha Devas are called the Devas which are within the Brahmanda. So it is called Savarana Brahmanda and the Prakriti Laya Deva are beyond the Brahmanda. This is precisely the knowledge which, as a part of Siddhi, the yogi receives in the form of Bhuvana Jnanam. Surya Sanyamat Bhuvana Jnanam. This is the only sutra that Patanjali Maharaj has given. But there is so much of meaning attached to it, which is of course elaborated by the great Bhashyakaras who themselves were very high level of yogis. What happens beyond that? Chaturdasha Bhuvana is fine. But in Antariksha, there are so many stars, planets, everything. How are they organized? That knowledge comes to yogi by doing Sanyama on the moon. Chandre Tara Vyuha Jnanam. Tara Vyuha. The word Vyuha means arrangement. Tara, stars. The arrangement of stars is known to the yogi by focusing or by doing Sanyama on the Chandra, on the moon. Now, stars have interrelationship. What is this interrelationship? We all know that there is something called Milky Way, Akasha Ganga, in which solar system is there. Then the center of that is sun. These 9 planets are making the orbits. They orbit around the sun. Each of them have a particular orbit. It is inclined or declined. It is longer or shorter. The Mars is here, the Venus is here, the Jupiter is there. Now this we are talking only about solar system. There are thousands of galaxies, multitudes of Milky Ways, and there are so many black holes. All that, imagine everything seen on a table. The overview of the entire structure of the stars and the planets comes to be known to the yogi because of his Sanyama on Chandrama. So only Tara Vyuha Jnanam. Now there are two aspects of Jnanam in stars and planets. One is the arrangement or the structure. Where is what is placed? This galaxy is where, that star is where, that is the brighter star. This is a duller star. That star is dying, that star is just born. This is the arrangement or the anatomy of the planets and the stars. That he comes to know by doing Sanyama on the Chandra. But as far as their movement is concerned, how are they moving? What are the orbits? Where do they collide? How they get absorbed into the black hole? How there is an explosion of the new star? What are these neutron stars? What are the dwarfs? All that knowledge comes to him by doing Sanyama on the polar star or the Dhruva Tara. So Dhruve tad gati jnanam, Chandre Tara vyuha jnanam, Dhruve tad gati jnanam. So the rotational aspect, the velocity aspect, the movement aspect is known by focusing on Dhruva. Why Dhruva? Because Dhruva Tara is supposed to be Nischala or unmoving. Although it is a fact that in about 10,000 years, the polar star moves by 2 centimeters. But that is relatively insignificant compared to the other movements. The polar star is constant. And it goes without saying that if you want to know exactly the rotation and the movements, there has to be a fixed point. And the fixed point being Dhruva Tara. When the yogi sits in meditation and does Sanyama on the Dhruva Tara, he comes to know about the rotational aspects of all the planets. And there is no limit for that. Today, the best of the telescope and the best of the mathematical calculations are not able to find out what is the end of the universe, because the galaxies are still expanding. Expanding means going where? Where is the end of the universe is still not known to science. However, for the yogi, as if it is seen from the mountaintop, he is able to visualize the entire thing. Imagine the enormity of the observation. Imagine the capacity of the intellect, which is able to grasp the entire thing in one go. There is no process involved in this learning. It is not like touching an object, seeing it from different angles and then getting the knowledge about it. This is Indriya Virahita Jnanam. It is instant Jnanam. It is Yoga Jnanam, that which is born out of yoga. If you look at the different pramanas in the Shastra, there is a Jnanam called Yoga Jnanam in Nyaya Shastra and all that. This is a Jnanam which just comes. It just dawns upon you. There is no process. One fine morning, as we call it as a phrase in English, you just come to know about it. So the yogi who is expert in doing the Sanyama, because he has already mastered the art of Sanyama. Dhyana, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi has become his practiced art. So he just applies it to different areas and keeps getting the knowledge. Whether the yogi would really be interested in doing the Sanyama on the Chandrama or not, that is his own question. That is his own liberty. If he does, he will get that knowledge. If he does any other thing, he will get that knowledge. The process or the technique remains same. Sanyama is the technique. Where you will do Sanyama, it's choice of a yogi. Then why are these siddhis told? The siddhis are told because the yogi is supposed to get enormous amount of confidence that he is marching in the right direction. All these siddhis are nothing else but about the creation, and he is planning to go beyond the creation. So he will not be entangled in the creation, howsoever magnificent it may be, howsoever beautiful and amazing it may be. But these are nothing else but the trickling side effects of Sanyama. So they treat this as a side effect of Sanyama and keep walking forward. Nothing attracts them. They are already at a Paravairagya level. That is why we see the best of the yogis do not do any miracle, although they know everything. It's only when an avatara descends down for the sake of yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati, they do exhibit certain miracles because they're appropriate at that point of time to arouse the God consciousness amongst the masses who are becoming dilapidated because of the materialistic approach towards the life. But the yogi, during the Sanyama, because his ultimate march is towards the Purusha Khyati, the Kaivalya. Now, in that march, since he is going to go to the top of the Mount Everest, on the way, he might see some beautiful peaks of other peaks of Himalayas, but that will not captivate him. He will enjoy them, he will see them, but he'll keep walking till he reaches the Kutastha, till he reaches the top of the mountain, till he reaches a stage where he gets Kaivalya, and till a stage where he feels that Purusha Khyati has dawned upon him. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Thank you, Sanjay ji. We'll wait for some questions.
Hari Om, Sanjay ji. This is Rajendran. Condolences on the your mother's death. We were missing you.
Hari.
So here, in our Idihasas, like Ramayana and Mahabharata, two dynasties are given, like solar dynasty and lunar dynasty. Do this have any relation with this Patanjali Yoga Sutra? Is it from Patanjali Yoga Sutra this concept has been derived, or what is your opinion about that? I have one more question.
Yes, please.
And in astrology and astronomy, all these stars and grahas are seen long ago without without even having a telescope, because those days there was no telescope. So is it through meditation? Was it through meditation that they have found it?
Hari Om. The second question first. Yes, the entire knowledge of astronomy, if we look at the Varaha, Mihir, Samhita, Bhrigu Samhita, etc., it is all Yoga Jnana. They don't have to have any instrument, because it was not through the Indriyas that they received the knowledge. It is the knowledge that dawned upon them at the height of meditation, which they did. And that is how it has been described by them in more accurate manner, much more accurate. Similarly, Kanada Rushi, the founder of Vaisheshika philosophy, he actually could visualize the protons and neutrons, etc. That is why he is called as the father of particle physics in India. However, it was never mentioned in the name, or it was called as Anu Renu, and that is how molecules and atoms were described. So the knowledge that came to them was at a particular stage of meditation. It was self-revealed to them. You don't have to really research the sun out. You need to open the eyes. So these are the people who had opened the eye. That's why sometimes the concept of third eye, which is nothing else but a lakshanartha, that means you increase ability of your antakarana, which is essentially buddhi, to grasp the aspects which are normally not within the purview of your normal intellect. So that is how even the old astronomers received this particular kind of knowledge. As far as this solar Ikshvaku or whatever lunar dynasty is concerned, we need to understand that in the loka called Satya Loka, or Dwapar Yuga and Satya Yuga, in Satya Yuga, Satya Loka and Satya Yuga were connected, in the sense that the level of chitta shuddhi of people, today we are people with lot of tamas in us. Lot of rajas has come now. In fact, tamas was there more in India before independence. Now in India, we see more of rajas. So there is a guna predominance with each period of history. Now there was a period when sattva guna was at ascendancy. So that is why that is a period where every single individual has achieved a very high level of sattva guna in him. That means the chitta shuddhi level was very high. Naturally, with that kind of chitta shuddhi, meditation for them was easier and they used to practice it regularly. So imagine there is a city which is inhabited by about 1,000 people and all 1,000 are rishis. How would they communicate with each other? How would they talk to each other? And that is how, during that loka, there was a communication with these higher realm people like the yakshas, like the gandharvas. They used to regularly come and visit the bhuloka. Now, this appears to be very far-stretched and extraordinary, but it is not so. It is just ultimately you get acquainted to a particular test depending upon your ability to test the item. Similarly, depending upon the kind of guna that predominates in you, you get corresponding experiences. So that is how this Ikshvaku or the sun line or moon line is the nothing else but those who came. For example, Bhagwan Sri Ram. Bhagwan Sri Ram was in the human form. As a king he came, but by birth and by source, being of pure sattva, being avatarita. Avatarit from where? Coming down from where? From the highest. From the highest means where? From Chaitanya or even from the Satyaloka. So that is how when that Chaitanya tries to become Vyakta, it has to take a step in between because the forms are to be formed. That is why either it is Avatarita, that means the Chaitanya himself, for the sake of Uddhar, has descended, that is called Avatarana, or the people have practiced the Sattva Guna so much that they have reached and ascended a height, and that is how they keep ascending on the Chaturdasha Bhuvanas and stay there. So that doesn't mean that somebody who is staying in Satyaloka will not come into the Bhuloka. It can. For example, when Samartha Ramadas was meditating and he wanted and intended, his desire was to see Bhagwan Sri Rama in actual Chaturbhuja form, he did come and the darshana happened. How is it that the Thakur Ramakrishna Paramahansa said to Vivekananda that, yes, I have seen God. Only thing is, much more clearly than I see you. What does that confidence mean? That means Druggochara. In the space and time, the Chaitanya, the Lord, appears for the sake of bhakta. So he takes the shape. So that is the relationship that can be established between these different lineages that we talk about. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you. Thank you.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, Sanjay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So, deepest condolences unki Atma ko Satyadi Prapto. We really missed the sessions, but it was due. My question is just a general one. We talk about, so we talked about the sun and everything, but this is only part of the Milky Way, right? So there are many other galaxies. So are the lokas, by focusing on this, are the lokas only existing in the Milky Way, or are they, omnipresent, so to speak, in the whole?
The answer is, if you have maybe 10,000 bags of rice, you want to know the taste of rice, you don't have to cook the 10,000 bags. Similarly, in Sanyama, any one object, if you see, and suppose it is Ghanibhuta object, it is a Bhuloka object, like a stone. For that matter, what you are taking in front of you as an idol is nothing else but the stone or wood. But by focusing on that, since it is Pancha Mahabhutatmaka, knowing that through meditation would mean knowing all Pancha Mahabhutas. In the similar manner, the prototype of This setup of some stars rotating around a central star and having a gyrational activity or the rotational velocity and a particular orbiting is a pattern that is repeated in universe as we see. The size may vary, the direction may vary, the speed may vary, but the fact remains that one rotates around the other. So when you take sun and its planets or in the planetary system as the focus, as the Sanyama, by that you come to know everything that moving in the similar common law principle. Sanyama finds out common law principle. For example, if you read somebody's mind, that means you can read anybody's mind. Why? All minds are same. The common law principle gets exposed by meditation. So now depends what principle are you focusing on. If you're focusing on the planetary systems, then take any one, closest being the sun, and then you get completely, your door is open for the entire planetary system. Similarly, you take something on the walking human being. You want to know about how is your body structure, what are these intestines, what is this pancreas, what is this spleen. One is to do anatomy and physiology and find out which is still going on. Why diabetes happens, we don't know. Why cancer happens, we don't know. We're still trying to search that. But for the yogi, he focuses only at the Nabhi Kendra and he comes to know the entire anatomy. He doesn't have to dissect the body. He comes to know because he sees each organ functioning. He knows the color of the spleen. He knows color of the liver. He knows the trickle that is coming from the liver through the bile duct is nothing else but the bile. Oh, it just got poured into the intestine. All that is seen by him. This penetrating power is nothing else but the buddhi. And that is because of Sanyama. So if he is able to see our body, he can see any animal's body also. Because common law principle. This is how it operates. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, Sanjay. Just out of curiosity, is there any physical parameters or any other parameters by which you can identify a yogi or he's meditating like a Surya Samyama? Or, the reason I'm asking, like, if you take Mada Amalandama, you must have heard of this South Indian this thing, what they call it, lady. India Today was ridiculing her in the 80s when the first article came. But she went on to capture the whole world. Now foreigners are main devotees of her, especially from the European side. And when she visited the BARC sometime back, she had asked some questions to the scientists there and they could not answer, but she explained to them. She is only a first standing. Is that a yogi power or it is something beyond that?
Remember, when you are going to the school and trying to become a graduate, even in the fourth standard, you get some knowledge. Now, those who have never been to the university or the school, they find even the fourth standard person to be pretty intelligent. But in the line of graduation, fourth standard is nothing. It is important and imperative to know that a yogi would never ever be interested in showing the miracles. Never ever be interested in talking about his own achievements. Did you see Gurudeva any time talking about his achievements or what has he seen during the dhana or anything? They will never speak about it. The reason for that is ahanta is gone. When ahanta is gone, the person who says, I know this siddhi, I can do this, or he tries to come in contact with people trying to get published himself, etc. Remember, you are in the wrong person's company. He cannot be an yogi. No yogi is ever interested in any publicity. In fact, they shy away from people. So you have to literally find them out. You are extremely lucky if you get in touch with them. That is why most of the saintly people or yogis have become famous after their death, because during their time, no one understands them to be so great, except some exceptions. So that is why, first of all, getting exposed to the scientists, talking to somebody, trying to show them that, look, I know, this will never happen with a yogi. Even if you probe him, I happen to have a very rare occasion of meeting somebody extremely knowledgeable. A continuous probing of 2 to 3 hours also, not one single word came from the mouth of that Swami that what was he doing, what is his experience, how is he feeling, nothing they talk about. The reason being, they speak only to the Shishya. Unless you have a qualitative authority, nothing will be exposed to you. We do not deserve it. We just take darshanam and go away, and they will give you ashirwad. Other than that, they will not. Antaranga Shishya is the qualification, and then the Guru, then it is only Tapovan Maharaj who showed some mysterious things to our Gurudeva, not to everybody. He avoided meeting people. Swami Vivekananda was chased by many people about the miracles, and he said, I don't believe in them. I don't do any miracle. Factually speaking, there are so many things that happened in his life without his knowledge. Because yogi, a magnet, attracts the iron particles. The magnet doesn't do anything to attract, it is there inherent in the magnet. So similarly, a yogi, wherever he goes, miracles may happen. He never does it. He is never interested in it. He never professes it. And anybody who professes, talks, comes in limelight, because this is a esoteric science. This is a serious business. It is not meant for something to be discussed in the evening discussions. It is a serious attempt of doing meditation. It requires enormous amount of effort. It requires many, many births to reach this stage. So anyone who comes and tries to talk on these lines that, there was a NASA meeting and somebody went there, what is the interest of a yogi to impress the NASA people? He is at such a level where he sees consciousness everywhere. He loves everyone. He doesn't want to establish any superiority because he knows everybody is superior. It's a different state of mind. Hari Om.